Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. You want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. I want to talk Bills Jets. So I think about this a lot because I'm in my late 50s about picking on kids. So what if my kid was a quarterback for the Jets? I think Zach Wilson's about as ineffective as any quarterback I've ever seen in my life play the position, especially for a kid whose arm is fine. He's got a average to above average arm. He's completely ineffective as a quarterback. I don't know if it's, I think he was drafted, as you noted, in the COVID year. I think he's Johnny Manziel with a better arm. I just don't think, I don't know if he loves the game. He certainly doesn't inspire teammates. One of my favorite picks of the week was Buffalo today. I thought they sort of get right, pissed off, 12 men in the field, Blazing 5. We had a good week. The Rams helped us. But one of my favorite picks was, Buffalo's embarrassed itself with that 12 men on the field, all the turnovers, all the drops. They were going to come home. And this is sort of, and we've talked about this before, Thanksgiving going into it, Thanksgiving and coming out of it. This is the separation time in the NFL. The Jets are in a strange spot. So they've got some cap space, but they have to draft a left tackle. You could argue, because Elijah Vera Tucker is not ever healthy, they need 5 new offensive linemen, probably 4. You run the Jets. They whiffed on a left tackle and a quarterback. They've hit on virtually everybody else. As you well know, there's 2 positions, maybe 3 you can't whiff on. Left tackle, quarterback are way up there. Would you bring Saleh and Joe Douglas back? They're anemic offensively. They're another defensive coach team that looks just out of sync with the league offensively. This was embarrassing. A humiliating loss. I mean, Christ, even the Giants won today with Tommy DeVito. You
good,
own
by the way.
Yeah, you own the Jets. What do you do going forward?
You don't really have a choice to me because that you went all in on Aaron Rodgers. And unless Aaron Rodgers wants these guys gone, and it sure doesn't feel like that, right? With Nathaniel Hackett coming on, that you have to roll it over. I mean, you're kind of beholden to him. I mean, some of these, there was a story that came out today that they're going to go after Devontae Adams in the offseason. Like, let's focus on some other priorities here. Like, let's protect the quarterback. You already have a really good wide receiver. Look at Tank Dell for the Houston Texans. They found him in the 3rd round. How about we get a guy in the mid rounds to be your number 2 wide receiver? You drafted a tight end. Like, you should be able to figure some stuff out. Let's invest in the offensive line. I would bring these guys back just because of Aaron Rodgers. But if this does not turn around next year, they got to go fast. I mean, they might not make it through the season. It'd be like, if it's clearly not a playoff team at this time, to me, they're all gone because, let's face it, I had a guy tell me, when it was clear that he had drafted Joe Douglas, drafted a lot of really good players, he's like, let's just pick 7 of them. If 6 out of 7 of them, the Garrett Wilsons, the Becktons, the Sauce Gardners, the pass rushers, all become Pro Bowl level guys, that's awesome. But if Zach Wilson is a bust, we're in trouble. And if all those guys are busts and Zach Wilson's a player, we'll get contract extensions and we'll be viewed as big time in the NFL. And while they were bailed out a little with the Rodgers trade, not really, because he never got to play, and we got to see Zach Wilson on display again, and it consistently got worse. And I think it's easy to be objective with Zach Wilson, because this year there's the immaturity, like off the field, is just quiet. It's just as the player, and he's objectively terrible. He doesn't know how to play the position. I mean, today you could tell right away after the first quarter they didn't stand a chance. Like, didn't have a chance no matter what the defense did, no matter if they got 10 turnovers from Josh Allen, which clearly he was going to be pretty locked and loaded. He's a disaster, and you usually don't get bailed out when you draft a guy that high. The other thing, Robert Saleh, I mean, you can just I had a take the other day when he was coloring his beard. Yeah. Saleh's a good-looking guy. In New York, though, and I think in the NFL, like, for example, Ryan Day, another guy in his early 40s, clearly colors his beard. A little different. Recruiting, looking hip and fresh. Nick Saban, whatever, colors his hair. Mike Krzyzewski. Recruiting's a little different. In the NFL, no one cares what you look like. I mean, Andy Reid has been big for 25. It's about winning and losing. You cannot be focused on some of this stuff when you're losing. Well, what did you notice today? Saleh shaved that thing off, right? It's just like, you just got to focus on, people are judging your team, not how you're looking, some of this other stuff. And I think sometimes the Jets get caught up in that. Like when the Giants are good, there's never any fluff around them. The Jets always deal with all that stuff on and off the field. And I think those guys, the story about Aaron Rodgers coming back off the Achilles is insane. Like, what are we even talking? That's the dumbest story going.
Something magical happens when the third quarter ends and the fourth quarter begins. The energy changes. The fourth quarter, that's where games are won. And in business, it's where sales teams become legends. The fourth quarter. That's why HubSpot built Sales Hub to give sales reps the deal-making tools they need to win in the fourth quarter and close the year strong. Sales Hub Prospecting Workplace organizes your schedule, your to-do lists, your goals all in one place to save your team time in the precious fourth quarter. Smart sequences help sales reps close deals faster than ever. Plus, AI forecasting helps you accurately predict future successes. And with an easy-to-use management tool, reps can find, track, and close deals all in one place, which means less hoping for deals and more crushing targets. Put your sales team on the fast track now to winning the fourth quarter with Sales Hub. Learn more at HubSpot.com/sales.
He's not coming back. He's never been coming back. And obviously, they're not even going to be in position because they're going to be so far out of it by that time to even risk it. But I think clearly they would not have been as bad if he was able to play. I mean, him compared to Zach Wilson is a pretty wide gap. But it probably would have been a little bit more of a struggle than people like me thought it was going to be for them.
Absolutely. They do not have a number 2 receiver. They're average at tight end. O-line's bad. And awful. Hackett's below average offensive coordinator. You know, something that I think about, John, I think about this all the time. A friend called me the other day, and he said, Colin, you got the volume. You're doing well for FS1. You're doing well for Fox Sports. Boy, you really got leverage here. And I said, if you have it, be careful about flexing because people will remember when you don't. Aaron too often flexes. Alan Lazard. Now you're stuck with that contract, Aaron. They can't go buy Devontae Adams. Alan Lazard's not worth that money. Randall Cobb can't play. Hackett, give me a break. Aaron wants you to know he's got power and too often uses leverage. And Brady had it his entire career in New England. Johnny never used it. He never flexed. He went to Kraft twice. Once on Garoppolo, and I was told even a year before Garoppolo, he complained a little bit about Belichick and the relationship, and that Bill could just be at times really, if not hostile, disrespectful. But Brady never used it. By the way, Peyton Manning didn't use it. Anytime Aaron gets an inch of it, he uses it. Lazard is now a bad contract. Hackett's a bad coordinator. Wouldn't it be nice to go out and buy the best free agent center on the market? And I think Aaron's his own worst enemy. Is that I said this. I don't believe Aaron will ever matter in the NFL again. And that's not a knock on Aaron. It's not. I think coming back's a huge mistake. And he's better to just, like most Jet seasons, let it just, put it in the washer, wash it out, dryer. We'll see what it looks like in a year. But I don't think he'll ever matter again. I do think eventually the Bills will go pay 7 figures for an offensive coordinator. Miami's not going backwards much. They have a really smart coach. Burrow will come back healthy. Baltimore's always good. You start looking, Brandon Staley probably out. They have an offensive competent coach. Mahomes going nowhere. Russell Wilson, Peyton are now at least viable. They can play. This is my take. Aaron will never matter again in the NFL. Am I wrong?
Well, if you wanted to dive into those 4 or 5 plays he had before he tore his Achilles, one thing he always hung his hat on was he had like the Drew Brees level accuracy with a big time arm, but he could really move. Before he went down, he was not looking like 33-year-old Aaron Rodgers. There were a couple of movements where you're like, he looks old. He's 39 years old. So he was not the same physically. And remember, coming off a pretty shitty year for his standards the previous year.
Yeah.
So this is a guy, I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, you just go, 8 months, 9 months recovery, come back. He's going to be 40 years old off Achilles, that even if the doctors and the rehabs are dramatically better now than historically, these are type injuries that ruin career. Look at Klay Thompson. The guy he's a shell of himself. And he's way younger and a much better athlete. And I know he had the ACL as well, but I think if you just based it strictly on the way you battle back from an injury like that, when a huge part of what made you a really good player was movement, he's good. He's a good pocket player, but movement really separated him, made him an all-time great player. So if he can't really move, what's he just going to do when he's getting, pressured nonstop with that offense? Just throw it away all the time? Right. So I think that because the one thing Brady and Manning always had is that was the only way they could play. They could never move. So they mastered it from the moment they were 24 years old, or hell, in college. Peyton was a little bit better athlete in college than he became in the NFL. But Rodgers, part of his game was like, screw it, I'll just take off right or hang off left, hit guys down the field. Well, that's going to be over. I think we have to bank on that being over. So, yeah, I mean, I would say I think the Jets' big picture just have major, major problems. They took a huge home run swing, which I can't blame them. They didn't have any other options. But it immediately backfired in their face when his Achilles ripped. And now you're getting a guy back. Now, I think the only thing that they got going for him is he gave him money back, right? That $75 million wasn't $110 million or whatever it was, right? So financially, they get a little relief based on that contract that they negotiated before the season ever happened. But yeah, I think they're in major, major problem. And this, like, what do they actually gain out of this year? All these good defensive players that are on rookie contracts, just wasted. You're going to go, I mean, they'd be lucky to go 7-10 again at this. I don't see how they win another game.